The Unhappy Hour on TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Hi, Mr. Ben. We might as well start the show with Mr. Ben jumping into the picture. My name's Brian. This is The Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM network, because the news always matters. All right, I am broadcasting this out on Facebook. So make sure you're following us on Facebook, The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. Instagram, we just put out a good video on Instagram and our YouTube page. It's our sports-only YouTube page. So join that one. We need people to join that because we've had the New American Media YouTube page for, 8 years. But our new YouTube channel is The Unhappy Hour. So join us on those platforms. Instagram, we were watching. So anyway, let's just start the show. I had to wait. I'm getting all these things streaming. Thank you for joining me. All right, so the Cleveland Browns won a nail-biter of a game. This was a game that had a little bit of everything. This game started off with Baker Mayfield looking like trash. Out of rhythm. Out of rhythm and maybe physically incapable of performing the job of playing NFL quarterback. We know about his injury that he's fighting through, and saying that it's hard to follow through on his throws and with the ribs and what have you. And then Odell Beckham Jr., one of the largest looming figures, if you think of the modern day Mount Rushmore. And let's just give the NFL 20 faces to the game. Odell Beckham being one of those 20 faces of the game of football. He's been there for a while. He's incredibly talented. We've seen him running with the ball, scoring touchdowns. We've seen him throwing the ball. We've seen him catching touchdowns. We've seen him with what appears to be an attitude and a work ethic that dispel the rumors of some of the things that you've heard in your lifetime. The reports coming back are that he's a great team player. He's best friends with Jarvis Landry on the same team, playing the same position. How damn cool is that in the NFL? And you're getting paid. You're both getting paid. You both got paid by the Cleveland Browns. So there's a mutual value and a mutual respect. I think Jarvis is happy to be out of Miami. That was a pretty miserable situation for him. And let's be honest, it hasn't been great here in Cleveland over the past 3 years. But things being contagious about bad attitude, that's contagious, bro. That's contagious. And it's a disease of the mind. Jarvis Landry gets that. He's not just a great Pro Bowl wide receiver. He gets the head and the heart. He understands the head and the heart. And about how excuses and poor work ethic, that they're contagious. No human being's perfect. It's hard to stay on top of your game all the time and stay focused. And our society makes a bunch of money off of keeping you distracted or angry on social media. There have been enough reports, what's that new documentary? Someone type it in the comments. Netflix, it's like the social experiment, maybe? And it's about how all these social media companies, you're being manipulated. And the news industry died. But when the news industry died, the internet, tabloidy, social media news companies emerged. And so you're constantly being distracted on your feed. What's the latest outrage? Who should I be angry with? How can we subdivide Americans against each other instead of united? As a united 50 states. So this world that we live in is in many ways much more difficult than it was in 1980. you had television, you didn't have cable. You were being manipulated by the media at that point, but there were only 3 or 4 options. And yeah, maybe fewer people realized you were all being lied to, but it was easier. You didn't always have it on your phone as constant rage bait. But anyway, it's hard to stay connected. It's hard to stay disconnected. It's hard to stay balanced and focused in 2020 for a lot of reasons. Jarvis Landry understands a bad attitude and laziness is contagious. So you have to limit, you have to put some blinders on and narrow your focus just a little bit. You're not looking at all of this in the peripheral. You just kind of start getting here. And so the Browns have been turning that around, and I feel like Kevin Stefanski really is the right coach for this. And it seems obvious. The more you learn about, you listen to smart people discuss what he does. And I'll admit to not being a Kevin Stefanski aficionado quite yet. It's like they say with puppies and kittens, don't name them until they last a few weeks. I've seen enough bad football over the years to know. One coach is going to be the same as the next coach. Give it 12, 13 games. Maybe they'll last a full season. Doubtful. But what you hear smart people saying about Kevin Stefanski is that he has a rhythm that he runs. And there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of variations within that, but it's a basic, steady front that isn't confusing. It's you jump in there. You jump in there, you plug and play. And it's not excessively confusing. Well, why should it be? Where a lot of, a running play could look like an end around, can look like a passing play, that could look like play action, that could look like a bootleg. They all kind of start the same, and then they have these extra twists added to them. It's a smart way to run a system, especially if you're going to be starting without a preseason. If you're going to be playing during the times that we're in with what happened from Wuhan. If you have a simplistic system that has many intricacies to it, you're going to allow new players to acclimate to a new system much more rapidly. And who knows, maybe there's layer after, you keep peeling layers of the onion back once the team gets comfortable with certain sets, then you add wrinkles, you add additional pieces. That we've seen it, the end around, the running backs, the wide receivers getting in on the throwing action, and Baker's going to be running for a touchdown. You're going to see all this. So I feel like Coach Stefanski's done a great job with everything that he's doing. 5-2 is something that's unthinkable. It's unheard of. It's friggin' fantastic. This is how Cleveland Browns football used to be during the Bernie Kosar days. You had moments during Vinny Testaverde with Eric Metcalf, with Bill Belichick. You had moments. Eric Turner. Remember Andre Rison? I mean, it's some strange times in those mid-90s, those early 90s, mid-90s teams. Parts were there, but not completely. But man, those Bernie Kosar years, 2 AFC championship games back to back, and it took like agonizingly, excruciatingly close but no cigar, painful losses to the Denver Broncos. Whereas if you look at I don't know. I digress. But look back at the Otto Graham days, founding this game of football. Otto Graham was unbelievable. Didn't he go to the finals? He went to the championship every game of his career. And he won, like 70% of them? Something like that? Seven championships in 10 years? I got to double check. I don't have my Otto Graham knowledge solidified or memorized like I should. Bad me. I got to be better than that. But that being said, don't forget Jim Brown. The best running back, arguably the best running back of all time. And Paul Brown, and just the history of Cleveland football. This game, this sport, this region. Man, does it feel nice to be competitive, consistently competitive again. Now, I have my concerns. Look, Baker Mayfield in that first quarter, you cannot play like that and expect to keep a job, especially with the talent around you. And yes, we had injuries. J.C. Treader, already down Nick Chubb. Then you lose Odell Beckham Jr. on, Baker threw a bad pass. Beckham ran back, tried to make a tackle, and, this is what happens when your quarterback doesn't put you in a position to succeed. Fluke plays like this can happen. Now, it's tough to blame it on Baker, obviously, because it's a game, and you can't expect somebody to always do something perfectly. And we do, as a society. Instagram has a filter for that. If you're not feeling perfect today, we'll put some dazzle on you. It feels like the simulation that we're in is getting more and more interesting as far as the apps that we have access to. It's like your character keeps leveling up, and then you get new skins, you get new potions or powers. If you ever played like Dungeons and Dragons or Final Fantasy or something like that, or Zelda. But yeah, I mean, I expect perfection out of myself, which is very difficult because I'm so far from competent so many days. There's a human condition. We all suffer from it. But I'm wired the way that I'm wired. And I also expect perfection. I also want the most and the best. And sometimes overthinking overanalyzes separates the body from the mind. Overanalyzing separates the body from the mind. That's a Tool lyric, if you're not aware. But paralysis through analysis. That's something if some people who are wired like me, you can get caught up in your own thinking, your own headspace, and it slows down things because you're really trying to understand it enough because you feel like the failure in the task is because of a lack of understanding. Because had you understood the rest of what you were trying to do, you wouldn't have picked that outcome, which means you would have picked the outcome that succeeded. So there's a lot of overthinking, overanalyzing, separating the body from the mind. And I expect perfection. And I've expected perfection from the Cleveland Browns for a really long time, and trust me, few endeavors have been so fruitless. Pretty miserable. It's been a hard existence trying to remain a Browns fan over the past 2 decades. That's what do they call that? Dan Brown. What was that movie? The Da Vinci Code. And the character, he has a stick and some chains and a hunk of metal or twine or barbed wire or something wrapped around it, and he's self-flagellating. He's just hitting himself over the back as part of some religious, spiritual experience to feel pain, and he's got welts and bruises all over. I forget the character's name, too. Sorry. It was a great book. I loved it. Loved the whole series. I like a lot of Dan Brown's writing, actually. I need to get back to reading some of him. Digital Fortress was good, and then he had another one that was good. What was that one? Was that Digital Fortress, the one where they're out in the Arctic? Anyway, self-flagellation is what it's been to be a Cleveland Browns fan over the past 25 years. And this team was ripped out from underneath our feet in 1996, right? 95? When Art Modell took the team away. I was at that last game. Would love to track down the seat that I took from in front of me, from the stadium. I think it's in somebody's garage. Hooray. Not mine. Somewhere else. Anyway, I digress. If any of you has a official Cleveland Municipal Stadium seat that you'd like to send me, just let me know. Available for pickup as well. But look, after Odell Beckham Jr. got injured yesterday, things changed for Baker Mayfield. And you know what? Maybe they changed because he looked across the field and he saw Joe Burrow. Guess what? Joe Burrow looks the part, acts the part, gets it done. He's taken some wicked hits this year. You cannot sustain a career in the NFL if you're going to be hit like that. We've seen it happen plenty of times. The dirty Pittsburgh team injuring the Browns players, whether it's Colt McCoy or, Go down the list. We've seen Cleveland quarterbacks take a beating and get injured. Tim Couch, he had a lot of talent. He was starting to go places, but he couldn't keep him protected. You didn't invest in that line enough. That offensive line, that offensive coach, that system, that is as important as your quarterback. Doesn't matter what Ferrari you have back there. If you put bald tires on it, you're going to crash. You're going to crash. So Baker Mayfield was looking over at Joe Burrow. This for the second time this season now. And Burrow looks like a real NFL quarterback. Yeah, for sure. I've only really watched him play against the Browns, which at times doesn't feel like a good defense. It's a defense that gives up a lot, but they also have home run hitters that can make up for it. Myles Garrett with another strip sack. You're witnessing greatness. I played defensive end. I loved Bruce Smith and Reggie White. Derek. You could go across the NFL and find a lot of great defensive ends. And it's one of my favorite positions. It's one where you really get to impact the game the most. Everything starts and stops with that line. To watch Myles Garrett doing what he's doing is on. You better treasure this. You better love this. This is like LeBron James, like a freak at his craft, and he could be so much better too. It doesn't even make sense, and it's so fun to watch. Baker is surrounded by lots of talent, and there have been questions. There have been questions now about whether Baker Mayfield has what it takes to get it done. We're consistently competitive, like I said. I mean, throughout the season, 5-2. That's extrapolate that out. That's kind of like 10-4. That's a good sample size to say, all right, you're a better team than you aren't. But there have been a lot of issues in these games. There were a lot of close games, but this Browns team is finding ways to win games where they used to find ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's something that they always used to do. They would snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. This team is getting it done. Sure, going down to the final play, or the final couple plays, the last minute for that touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield to Donovan Peoples-Jones, that was way too close for comfort. Good teams don't let that happen. You know why? We have that chance for the interception. You take the interception, you seal out the game. We failed to take advantage. We're not firing on all cylinders yet. We are not firing on all cylinders yet. We have a lot of injuries. But the people we do have, credit to the wide receivers coach, bringing people in. Rashard Higgins coming back. Hollywood Higgins, it's such a conundrum. Such a conundrum with Hollywood Higgins. Why is he so good but so seldomly used by both coaching staffs? It doesn't make sense. Baker seemed like a totally different quarterback when Odell Beckham Jr. left the game. I don't know if he got an injection to relieve the pain that allowed him to open up with the throwing. I don't know if he felt personally responsible. I know it upset him that his bad throw led to a fluke injury on Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe it's because he's not trying to force feed Odell Beckham Jr. And this is, I've done a whole show, and I haven't even scratched the surface of this because I feel like this is going to be one of the best parts. And by best, I mean it's probably the richest topic to explore, and I can do that in a subsequent show because I'm going to wrap this one up here. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, The Unhappy Hour, Facebook, The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. It's a private group, and then the other one is called Strictly Browns, powered by The Unhappy Hour. And then YouTube. We find our YouTube channel because we have two of them. One's The New American Media, and then the other's yet to be named. I have 56 subscribers. I need 44 more subscribers. Then I need to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can go live. So invite all your Browns fans into all these groups, please, because this is going to be a special season. But just back to the Browns. They are winning games that they used to lose. They would find ways to lose games, and we're not. And by the way, did you see Denzel Ward slip underneath? He slid underneath a block to blast a play in the Bengals, if not the backfield, right at the line of scrimmage. What an incredible play. He was everywhere. He tipped the ball that led to the interception. Denzel Ward is as big a game changer as Myles Garrett. So we have pieces. Losing Greedy, losing Delpit, that hurt us immensely. Immensely. But we're finding an identity with what we have. Let's see if we actually pull off a trade to do something to solidify either linebacker or in our secondary. Because those are the two areas. I mean, look, we're a playoff team. We have playoff potential. But by the way, it's exciting to be part of. Really, invite your friends to all the groups that we're in. Baker Mayfield he was perfect. It was 22 of 23? And the one incompletion was him spiking the ball to stop the clock because he was pushing a last-second game-winning drive. Perfection from a quarterback for 3 quarters. In the midst of it, I didn't really have the audio on, and it was a little hectic, and I was watching. I didn't quite realize how perfect he was. I wasn't listening to the announcers talking about it, and I wasn't picking up on it. I just saw great football, offensive football, and it felt really good. First time in a long time. So, go Browns. We got the Raiders up this week and then a bye. So, I'll do some more shows. Please invite all your friends to all this stuff. I appreciate you. I love you. And we'll talk again soon. Take care.
The Unhappy Hour on TheNewAmericanMedia.com.